Regionalism versus federalism. If you do not understand federalism, the world it is a confusing place. This is true and perhaps more so, when questioning why there are so many unsolvable social issues. The problems with the federal system are many, the factors to be considered when investigating federalism are innumerable. Regardless, the solutions always seem unreachable. No matter what we learn about unemployment, for example, the solution to it appears to be missing. Indeed, all we have to do is pose a question containing two variables, and every thinker and writer of the world is stumped and silent. Federalism does not permit solutions because to have a solution is to vacate the federalist system. This dilemma of federalism is obvious when we consider unemployment and inflation. There is no solution to these simple and troublesome problems in a federalist system. The truth is, neither unemployment nor inflation are inherent difficult to understand or complex. Even the child knows what the words mean. But the world's most learned men are at a loss what to do about these problems. There are within the federalist system no possible solution. Unemployment and inflation are, in a federalist economy, inversely related. Reduce one and we increase the other. Increase one and the other will be reduced. But they cannot be eliminated because the one causes the other to exist. The interesting thing is that unemployment is not directly the cause of inflation. No agency inflates prices to reduce unemployment. But as more and more people work, the price of goods and services rise, due to labor costs increasing. When inflation is steady or dropping, the labor participation rate is usually lowered and demand for goods and services is lowered. But the relationship between the labor participation rate and inflation is not a one-to-one correspondence. Hiring low-end employees will have less impact on inflation. The hiring of highly paid persons for the technical sector will increase inflation to a higher degree. The issue is not employment. Employment does not cause inflation. The problem is the way federalists increase employment. Inflation would not exist if the lower ranks produced the means of their employment. In other words, if the people who create the jobs and the people who do the work were the same people and on the same social and economic level. If about money, for a minute and looked at the problem in a more technical way, it is obvious that if 5 men had 5 pumps and each man pumped water for his needs, there would be full employment and a constant supply of water. In other words, there would be hemostasis between supply and demand. But if we added more men to the fountain and maintained the same number of pumps, water would be worth more, as there would be less available to each man, that is inflation. Too many men drinking and not enough pumping causes the goods and services being produced to increase in value. If we made the pumps larger and continued the pumping, the system would produce excess water and the economy would collapse. Before this happens, some of those pumping would be fired from their jobs. This is unemployment. The problem is not in the men working or the water being produced but in the mechanism that alters the volume of water being pumped and the numbers drinking. This system is federalist, meaning these decisions to hire and fire and produce more or less is made at the top. This is bound to cause issues. It is in short a system operated by experts of various types who, despite what they think, do not have their hands on the throttle or the brake. They are several steps removed from the actual levers that create supply and demand. The Bible refers to them as the scribes and the Pharisees, the learned men, the experts. As experts, they naturally separate from lesser mortals and place themselves above the rest of us. This is why federalism cannot be undermined from within and has to be eroded from outside. Everything we do within federalism simply recreates the paradigm in another guise. This is also why we cannot create a regional organization from the top down using the capitalization model common in the West. There is no leader in regionalism in the sense of a hero who comes along and sets everything up for the masses to adopt. Cults are clearly part of the federalist system. The cult leader lays out the organizational profile and new recruits are placed into position within the structure of the organizational hierarchy. The culture leader remaining at the peak position. In a regionalist organization, it is the base that forms the nucleus. 3 or more persons come together to form a cell, around which new recruits gather. This is the true meaning of living in faith. In common language, regionalism requires we trust one another, so regionalist organizations are composed of familiar persons and Christians. If we need to supervise, oversee, or regulate the other person, they are not someone with whom to form a regional structure with. Regionals are charities in that they do not exist to make a profit. They have an agenda, but it is an agenda defined by principles and not by personal benefits. Regional charities exist to build the church, which is the body of the faithful. This is done in practical. For example, women could form a housekeeping charity. Housekeeping is done as a charitable service and as a shared activity, rather than individually each lady doing her own work. Thus, housekeeping can be turned into a body of specialized activities. Such activities are eligible for pay, which means that it is possible in a regional charity to pay housekeepers for caring for the home. Regionalism is grounded in a different sort of bookkeeping utilizing a pure unit of account. This necessitates the formation of a regional charity such as that described above. A commercial structure can be regionalized by registering this as a not-for-profit. The charity is staffed by volunteers who are paid by the charity by crediting their accounts according to the work they do. A living wage is established, and each volunteer is paid this rate according to the contribution they make. These earnings become the means of exchange. To make a purchase, the cost of the purchase is deducted from the account of the buyer and credited to the account of the charity. Trades are organized as regional charities. All volunteers are registered as members of the regional. They work as a charitable contribution to the regional organization. The work they do is recognized by a credit to their account in the regional charity. These credits then enable them to purchase the things they need from the regional. Purchases are debits to their account and earnings are credits to their account. This is how the regional market operates. When someone needs a job, they go to the regional charity and do works of faith for the sector they are trained in. There are 12 different occupational sectors in the regional, each representing a different economic activity. Thus, anyone who wishes to work can go and work in the sector that represents their training or experience. There is no inflation because everyone produces something of value and the value they create is recognized by a deposit of credits to their regional account. Regionalism is an updated and more detailed model of the church as mentioned in Scripture. Our monetary system, political system and organizational structure are all consistent with the biblical account, and what differences exist are extensions of the biblical account and in no way pose a divergent view of how people ought to live. The church is a flat organization in which power resides at the base. We do not own the physical world which belongs to God. We have control over it, but in keeping with the purpose of God to bring glory on Himself, not on us. We work to build His house, His way. The worker is worthy of his wages. The idle investor is not worthy of his return on investment. We agree that within the federal system an argument can be made as to why investors deserve a return on capital, but this argument is invalid within the regionalist system. Regionalism ties remuneration to actual value created and nothing more and nothing less. There are no administrative jobs that produce nothing of value yet earn large incomes. If something is paid for, it is paid for by the base because it is something those at the base of the pyramid wants for the price asked. Supply and demand are the only influences operating in the regional economy. There is no regulation because there is no attempt to avoid the costs of the market. If we pay what we owe and we earn the value we get, there is no need for a regulatory state. In this sense, the state creates the need for itself. It creates costs without the means to pay and therefore creates a need for the economy to be regulated. Take away the state and the ability to externalize costs onto society and future generations is eliminated. Eliminate the capacity to externalize costs and the need for the state vanishes. Therefore, we are left with regionalism, a social model that does not externalize costs and does not need the state, therefore has eliminated the need for regulation. Regionalism is a market-driven social model. If you want something from a market, there is only one way to access it, and that is by adding to the market something of equal value. The only way to advance in a market economy is by adding more value to the market than one takes out, thereby being charitable. This is the message God has tried to teach you through the Holy Bible.